I was wondering, what am I doing here? On a lovely Sunday morning, first thing in the morning, let alone want to see an auditor, nobody wants to hear an auditor. So to begin the day with an auditor trying to make his presentation, I think is not going to be a very welcome Sunday for any one of you. But then these girls from 9.9, Shalini and Anuradha, are very brave. And despite all that she talked about yesterday, if they are willing to take on the brickbats that come my way, I guess they know best. And why I said, why am I standing before CFOs so early in the morning? Because I've been variously described, that's by people who matter, people are very higher, as that wonder boy who single-handedly brought this economy to the knees. As that wonder boy who probably single-handedly brought policy paralysis to this government. And also that with exaggerated computations, we showcased this country or this economy in very poor light outside. So the point is, I must in some ways try and justify that, and no better audience than a group of movers and shakers, the CFOs in corporate India today, who are definitely a bunch of powerful people, especially in a country, in an economy where volatility rules today. So, borrowing from Dr. Gokarn's equation yesterday, impact is equal to shock plus vulnerability, as he called it. I don't want to make it shock square when you see me first thing in the morning, but let me try and put across. The topic that Shalini has entrusted to me is government, governance, ethics. Hopefully, all of them, there is some synergy somewhere. I'll try and establish it, but there are some oxymorons in each one of these, all right. But one good thing, as I stand before you today, and I'm conscious of it, and I stand before you all, I mean people who read the market better, who felt the market better, and who have a better understanding of the economy than any one of us in government would ever have, is that I was having a feeling in my bones that we probably in this stage of our economic process, call it revival, we have come to a stage where probably we've hit the trough. And henceforth, the graph is likely to be upward. That's what I was feeling till about 2 weeks back. But then, I think the data that has been released by the government, by other institutions, and whatever has happened in the Main Street, certainly have established the fact that there is a silver lining. And to that extent, Dr. Gokarn will be coming, we'll compare notes. Most importantly, we have a new governor in the Reserve Bank. And I don't know whether you people read that piece by Shobha Day on him. No? He's described her as a rock star and as a guy who's put sex back into the same sex, which I thought was very well done. He's taken the bull by the horns. He's done a very brave thing, which means made a lot of big bank announcements on the first day itself. He's going to have a very difficult task on his hands, which means living up to those announcements which he's done, because it's not a question of only the announcements, it's a question of the fundamentals being handled also. Then the IIP for July, the figures are certainly better than what they were for June, but more importantly, the poor Indian rupee, who I think launched itself onto a bungee jump, or a bungee jump, whatever you call it, and forgot to put the cable onto its ankles. So it was getting into a free fall, hopefully somewhere down the line, whether it's quantitative easing or the rock star or whatever it is, that cable has been put onto the rupee, and that free fall, the decline has been stopped. Retail inflation has also in some ways moderated. But more importantly, and that's divine intervention as I would call it, we've had a favorable monsoon. And the multiplier effects of that favorable monsoon are going to be tremendous, because whether it's fertilizers, pesticides, farm machinery, and the consequential post-harvest purchasing power in the hands of the agriculturists, that is going to make a very sizable difference on what our economy is. Then I think, some of you, I think that's Aditya Birla Finance here. They are getting into the act also, and I think there was some kind of a acquisition. Was it JP Cements or something? I mean, which means things have started happening in the economy, and the mood seems to be better than what it was maybe in the month of July and August. So, and then let's look at the government. I think in some ways, give them credit for all their, whatever they've done in the past. Government is also becoming conscious of the fact that they have to be sensitive to public opinion. I mean, I think that is a very major positive development, and I'll say why. Two things. Number one was the decision by the Central Information Commissioner that national political parties would be part of the ITI. That was the only issue on which all the political parties promptly came together and decided that the political parties should not be a part of RTI because they're not a public body. They went to Parliament with that single-minded intention of passing that amendment to the RTI Act. But somewhere down the line, they became very cautious that public opinion matters, especially so, probably just pre-poll. And that amendment has not been passed. It's been referred to what is the standing committee. I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that it will get passed, and hopefully you will also feel the same. But the speed at which that decision was going to be taken has been halted, which means somewhere down the line, there is a feeling that public opinion matters. Number two is the decision, the verdict passed by the Supreme Court on so-called tainted political beings wanting to contest or recontest again. The reference was made to the Supreme Court. They came out with their clarifications and dismissed the issue regarding those who were already in prison, which means that amendment to the People's Representation Act, Representation of People's Act, has also been slowed down. Now, these were two issues on which the government has checked itself. The government in Parliament or the Treasury benches have checked themselves, and that's the feeling among all the political parties also, that it will be seen as a very brazen act of total indifference to public opinion in case those were passed. Public opinion, again, look what's happening in the G20 post the G20. Barack Obama came with the intention of getting with all these clearances of his own parliament or own house to do whatever he proposed to do to Syria. There was a check. And today's news says that now they're going to be given a week on that. So that the Syrians will pull out their chemicals, weapons, and display it to the UN people, or whatever it means. What I'm trying to say is that in some ways, the fact that governments are being sensitized to public opinion and are becoming cautious about public opinion is being borne out. Now, the other issue is, say, governance. In governance, what is governance? Governance is nothing but the fact that unless you have good governance, no sustainable economic growth is possible. Economic growth has to be incubated, supported by good governance. And if we are not able to provide good governance, this sustainability of economic growth gets lost somewhere down the line. And up to 2008, I think we had great hopes in the resilience of the private sector in India, where the private sector was pushing ahead and in some ways challenging the government, in some ways challenging the economy, saying that provide us the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure. and we want to push harder ahead. It was the government's responsibility to provide that infrastructure, maybe roads, maybe ports, maybe airports, maybe power, maybe water, whatever it may be. And if government had put its act together and been able to provide that, possibly the slowdown would have been there, no doubt, because each economy is plugged into the global economy, and the after effects of the meltdown, economic effects of that meltdown would have to be faced by us. But good governance also underlines probity, transparency, accountability, and some elements of ethics. But let me state a caveat over here. Good governance is not the sole responsibility of government alone. It's as much a responsibility of corporates as it is of government too. But since government collects money from the public, and there's an element of compulsion in that collection of money, you and I don't have an option of paying tax. We don't have an option of the percentage of our tax rate. So government collects money and spends on behalf of somebody else. So that somebody who pays the tax and on whose behalf the spending is done obviously has a right to question government on how and why the efficacy of the economy or the efficiency of that spending has been. So that's certainly more important. But corporates also, let me give you 3 very quick examples. One, I'll take you to draw down in history. First multinational, probably ever in the global economy. Would you be able to name it? The East India Company, 1600. Came to India, and came as a trader of spices and became the face of the Raj. But today, where is the East India Company? Not a plaque anywhere, even in the UK. It's gone, lost. Lost not because of rapacious politicians, but the fact that personal greed overtook collective interest of the company. And that's where the decline, if you read the decline of the East India Company, you will find that it was only giving gifts, bribes, and providing money to the rulers to pay their taxes because they ran out of it all, and that's what it indulged in. Number 2, our first, let me say, flirtation with the joint ventures of PPP, Enron. What happened in Enron? India was first. We just did not know how to structure a concession agreement where our interests were adequately protected and risk mitigation strategies were put into place. Well, Enron was then, if I can say so, global Rambo. Forbes magazine described them as the most innovative corporation in the world. And then they thought that everything economic can be set aside, their political connections will get them to whatever they want. And well, what happened with Enron and the whole in Maharashtra and SEB, etc., is history again. And the third one, I didn't elaborate further, one word which heavily contributed to shaking the confidence of global economies or global corporates into India, and that one word was Satyam. The quality of regulatory control that we have, or corporates, the extent of ethics and of probity that they practice in their... Anyway, so that was on the corporate side. But as far as government is concerned, obviously good governance would mean setting out policy parameters, ensuring that there's the least amount of discretion in it, and then ensuring that implementation of this policy is done in the most effective way, where it involves a good delivery channel to implement those policies with minimum amount of leakage in those channels. And of course, wherever it is required, there is promptness or alacrity in decision making to ensure that the implementation is speedy and is transparent. Of course, in the implementation, there is accountability and ethical behavior which is built into the delivery process. Now, for each one of you, for anybody who is not in the government, it's very essential that the terms of engagement with the government are well delineated. Left to myself, at least for any one of you, I would hate to walk into a police station, a law court, or even a municipal office if I could help it. Because the way, the response that you get, you don't get a feeling of comfort. You get a feeling of trepidation before you walk into that office, because you're not, sure that you'll be treated with, let alone respect or anything, with the kind of courtesy that any common man should deserve. You might come back a cropper, humiliated in some ways. And in that terms of engagement, and all of you represent the private sector, I'm sure all of you would like that the government supports enterprises per se, and not particular entrepreneurs. None of you, I'm sure, would like to, all of you are willing to stand in the queue, wait your turn, get your approvals, and would hate any one of you jumping the queue, coming ahead, and being a crony of anybody in power in government, getting yourself cleared much earlier. And each one of you, I'm sure, would like to play the game by the rules of the game. And you don't want any kind of changes to be made only because you are involved in it. And please be assured that it's a bogey that anybody talks about policy paralysis or whatever, because it's an alibi for non-performance. Makes me, as a government babu, my salary nobody is going to cut whether I take a decision or I don't take a decision. I'm not going to get a raise in increment whether I take a decision or not take a decision. If I can push the paper up or down and not take a decision, it suits me. Why should I take a decision? So it's an alibi for non-performance. It's a bogey. Those who could and are capable have continued to take those decisions. Now, let me talk about some of the issues that one has come across when I've been talked about. I have to talk to you about ethics in government procedures. Ethics is something which is not, again, one way. It is a two-way. It requires two to do the tango. If government is willing to make the concessions, there's somebody who's willing to receive those concessions or welcome those concessions. And if there was nobody willing to do that, and I think the landmark verdict was that by the Jharkhand High Court, or did it come to the Supreme Court, I'm not very sure, on that mining case, where they said that, the recipient of the bribe is not the only one. The person who pays the bribe is as much a better. And so both of them were implicated in that particular thing. Now, what it is all about? Bid rigging, for example. All of you are familiar with it, where the specifications are tweaked to suit X or Y or Z. Number one. Number two, post-approval or post-award concessions. If I'm a crony, I bid, get it at the lowest possible, or bid the lowest possible, get the contract, and then the game really starts. I get concessions X, Y, Z, and any number of concessions, which more than make up for the low bid that I had done. And that's the name of the game. It's worked very well, and that's how the expression crony capitalism got coined. Now, I don't know whether I have time to discuss any of the issues on whether it was coal or it was Commonwealth Games or it was Spectrum or whatever it was, but let me say 2012 in this country was a defining year. That was the year when, as a consequence of a large number of events that unfolded till the 16th December unfortunate event which, of course, to which the court has come to a verdict already. That's a very happy development, that the citizen decided he must come center stage. There were rallies, youth of this country came onto the streets, and believe me, the administration did not know how to handle them. It was a misguided administration. People like me are trained to handle political rallies in which the political party will go, persuade people, or actually pay them a day's wages, collect them in lorries and buses and bring them to the place of the rally. And then, after the rally is over, we'll transport them back. Which means it was an organized attempt. Over here, it was purely voluntary, social media. And these students came out. And why I say this was misguided administration, because it's a political executive or the administration, they did not know how to handle these guys, these kids. And that's why in the month of December, water cannons and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot. Because this was people collecting for a cause. And I would like to believe that these people are collecting to debunk the myth that this country or the world has been facing, which is, the myth is that of a silent majority. This was the majority deciding that we are not going to be silent anymore. And this is youth of this country coming onto the streets, wanting to be heard, wanting to be participated, and also debunking the myth that you and I, who only indulge in drawing room debates, TV discussions, etc., and white-collar people actually don't go and vote or come out in the streets for their own rights, whatever it may be. And what are we doing today? This is what I would call a participative democracy, because that group of people who are in the age group 18 to 21 who will be voting for the first time this next election, they will be indicating their mind. And their mind is one in which they're going to be questioning government, questioning you and me, and also saying that anybody who is in power sits in a glass house. Any action that he takes is visible to everybody else, and he jolly well will be accountable for that action. Now, this voice actually seeks a code of morality and ethics, and this voice is the one which we will have to contend with in the times to come. Now, I don't want to go on longer. I thought I'll introduce these issues to you, and would very much want some reactions for you in indicating only one thing, that if the auditor, some of you may be internal auditors also, did exceed his mandate, and let's, for the purpose of this closed room, accept that he exceeded his mandate. Do you think that the information that was thrown up onto his table was information which should not have been put out in public domain? Whether it was in the case of spectrum distribution, whether it was in the allocation of mines, or whatever it was, and I want that issue to be debated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.